What's a secret that could tear your entire family apart? My sister and father both did Ancestry DNA testing. Found some new relatives because my dad was adopted. When I mentioned I would do it, my mother got very defensive and outright mad, demanding I swear I won't do it. I don't look anything like my dad. Gonna be a wild Christmas this year when I get the results back of my test I did behind everyone's back. Update: I'll update when results come back in a month or so longer. I don't know how long it takes. This blew up crazy. Update number 2. He's my real dad. We are just very different people, both mentally and physically. At least now I know. Thanks to all for hanging in there and caring. Carry on, internet. My girlfriend was in dental school and needed patience. My stepdad volunteered and checked the HIV/AIDS box. She asked if it was a mistake and he smiled and said nope. And you can't tell anyone due to HIPAA. Turns out he cheated on my mom back in 2015 and contracted the virus. I still don't know if my mom is positive, because if I bring it up he will 100% come after my now wife for her career money. Not going to break apart the family, but I'm curious about what happens to family gatherings once my grandma passes away. She's 94 and in pretty good health for her age. She's also one of the most petty and mean-spirited women I've ever met. I'm curious what comes out when her health starts spiraling. There's a very thinly veiled hatred of my mother and both my aunts. One has a child from a previous marriage that has been cut out of the will, which has been causing problems for the last 2 decades. Christmas gifts are always cash and he's been getting mega shafted. One year a few years ago my sister and bio cousin all got $1,000. He got $1. He's never invited on vacations, but my aunt and uncle are, etc. My other aunt is a bit of an alcoholic when my grandma is around, and only when she's around, and is definitely not afraid to speak her mind. Meanwhile, all this shit means I see the extended family maybe once a year, and my cousins I was close with growing up are now rather distant, although that's on me because I'm terrible at communicating and reaching out to anyone. A couple of years ago, my family and I met up with my parents' grandma, siblings and their families at a big beach house in North Myrtle Beach for family vacation. I had gotten really into my ancestry and was doing all kinds of research on top, doing the little DNA kits and all that stuff. These ancestry services link you to folks who you share common ancestry with, so is your 4th cousin, yada yada. I was sharing some fun harmless findings with my dad, oldest brother, and grandma out on the deck, and then I bring up how I thought it was odd that 3 of my cousins born to my dad's older brother were popping up as my 2nd or 3rd cousins. The middle daughter in that trio had her ancestry stuff done through the same service as me, so her profile was linked to mine immediately. So I say, why does H show up as a 2nd 3rd cousin if she's my 1st cousin? Uncle B's daughter should be my 1st cousins. Grandma gets up without a word and walks into the house and right to her room. My oldest brother and dad share a look between each other where I could tell they were both on the same wavelength about something I was oblivious to, and my dad says, well, I guess that answers that question. My oldest brother, who is 11 years older than me and is from my dad's first marriage, lets me in on the family rumor that had been circulating long before I was born. When my late grandfather was overseas serving in the Korean War, it is alleged that my grandma, who was still just my grandpa's girlfriend at the time, got pregnant with Uncle B by another man. Some ex from her high school days whose name my dad seemed to remember being brought up in arguments between his parents when he was a kid. My grandpa came home from the war, they got married immediately, and I guess the math of when Uncle B was born and when my grandpa came home lined up just enough to make it believable that Uncle B was indeed my grandpa's firstborn son. But Uncle B looks nothing like my dad and the other 2 brothers. He's short and has a different look to him, whereas my dad and his younger brothers are all tall behemoths of men whom resemble each other and their dad. I never thought of it before, but now when I look at photos I can't help but notice just how different Uncle B appears in comparison. My ancestry discovery and my grandmother's reaction to it basically gave that rumor steady legs to stand on. And we have not spoken about it since that night. Only my dad, brother and I 100% know. and at this point we see no reason to bring it to light. Edit. In addition, my cousin H has her Ancestry profile set to private so I can't see her tree, but if she did her DNA Ancestry thing too, I'm sure she has discovered the truth as well. So I'm assuming at least she knows as well that her dad has a different dad than my grandpa. So this wouldn't tear my immediate family apart, but it could hurt some people. I have an uncle who is a thieving, sociopathic, narcissistic piece of garbage. He's almost in his 70s now but has kids peppered all over the country. Who knows how many, but of all the kids we know about, just one doesn't know she's his daughter. She was adopted and raised by her stepdad and never told any different. She also just so happens to be a teacher at my kid's school. It's really weird seeing her every day and knowing she's my cousin, but I can't say anything. And she looks just like him too. I met my blood family when I was around 16. Around 18 I found out that there is a family member with special needs of some kind, although I'm not sure whose child it is, where they are, or what their exact condition is. However, upon me asking about her, after she contacted me via social media, I was simply told we don't really talk about her, kind of a family rule. That's all I have been and will be told, and I haven't heard from her or from them about her for years. My grandparents cheated on each other at different points in time. The results are that I have an uncle who is a decade younger than me, but they may not be biologically related to me since my grandfather may not be biologically my grandfather. I am the only one who knows this, as both have told me and only me. How it's like living with that secret. It shows more about the patterns my family seem to have. My grandpa might not be my real grandpa because of the affair. My mom had also cheated on my dad for decades, and it started around when she got pregnant with my younger brother. The same thing is happening with him, where my brother may not be related to my dad. That one is known, but my grandparents' one isn't. How I feel about it is uncomfortable, but I don't have enough information or pressure to find out if the man my grandma had an affair with is my biological grandfather or not. Whether or not the family gets torn apart I'm not sure, but I feel disconnected from that secret. A certain family member used to get drunk and corner me, from the age of about 10. Never actually went all the way, but the innuendos and even outright groping a few times in front of people really did a number on me. The last time it happened was earlier this year, with no groping but contact and heavy innuendo. This person has supposedly stopped drinking due to health reasons, but I truly do fear one day I won't be able to talk my way out of it and will be full on graped. Never told much of anyone in the family because I didn't think they'd believe me or would blame me. The few family members I did tell or who saw concerning behavior interactions turned a blind eye and made excuses for this person, making me feel like I was overreacting or victimizing myself. My partner is aware and is incredibly supportive and protective. There was always a lead up to it getting on the level of inappropriate it was, so I always knew when it was time to try to remove myself from the situation. But it was never completely avoidable due to not wanting to sacrifice time with my siblings and mother. My mom's side of the family believes in airing it all out. There's not a secret that hasn't been told. However, my dad's side, my half-siblings don't know that our dad had an affair when he was first married to my sister's mom and possibly had another child in Germany, where he was stationed. That would be around my sister's age. In my family everything is an open secret. Everyone chats too much crap about each other. I just sit and watch, and listen, and enjoy the chaos, because no one in my family has actually worked out that none of them have secrets, so they're still trying to hide them, even though we all know. It's hilarious. I'd care about tearing the family apart, but I'm pretty sure my estranged older half-brother, 20 years older than me, and his daughter tried to wrangle me into some sort of scam. They had both recently gotten out of state prison after doing short stints for drugs. While they were in the slammer, my dad's mom passed away. My dad had already passed and he was an only child. My grandma had like 3 different life insurance policies that were all paid out according to her wishes, that I know of. Well, my dad's will was never legally executed and therefore my brother couldn't get any info payment from my grandma's will life insurance since my dad wasn't named in them since he had passed. I think they were trying to sue one of the insurance policies stating that the policy hadn't been paid out. Well, they needed my signature to execute my dad's will since I'm named as a child in it so they could have the legal basis to sue. What they didn't anticipate was that I worked for my local sheriff's office at the time. I listened to their bullshit as dumb inmate's story, then called the law firm they had hired to make all of this happen. His story was stupid af too. So I got all the info I needed, then started making calls. I called the insurance company and the lady I talked to was so nice. She gave me a few well-timed hints and suggestions on who I should call next and told me what she could legally tell me about my grandmother's policy. Made some more phone calls, then called my brother back to get his story again, which still didn't make sense, so I told him what all I had found out and they dropped the whole matter all of a sudden. Not so much a secret as much as everyone in my family choosing to ignore the obvious. My grandparents recently passed away, grandmother about 2 years ago, grandfather less than a year later. When we were putting together the obituary, we noticed that the time span between when they were married and when my mother was born was considerably less than 9 months. The younger generations obviously don't care, but my parents, aunts, uncles, etc. refused to acknowledge it, and even went as far as changing their date of marriage in the newspaper obituary. While my grandparents absolutely loved their children equally and did everything they can to support them and help them build better lives, they also have zero chill with acting on who they believe actually has their shit together when it comes down to estate and legal matters. My parent is the 3rd child in their family and they are the executor of the will and estate, not the oldest child. One of their older siblings still lives in their childhood home with my grandparents, both helping and aggravating them in the day-to-day, and my grandparents were very clear that after they die they are not giving the house to anyone. In part because they want the sale money to go to their kids, but also because they want to force their child still living at home to move on with their life. My parent was told by their parents to evict their brother. It's going to be a wild fucking ride if my uncle decides he's entitled to stay. My grandparents, well, they've left my mum their house and are fully leaving out their other kids. It's going to be chaos when it all comes out. They did write a very sassy letter to be read when they die, but I know it won't be pleasant for my family as we will get the blame for what my grandparents decided. That nobody likes my brother-in-law. It would ruin the relationship with my sister and my niece and nephew, which we would all hate. My brother-in-law has weird phases. Sometimes he is nice, sometimes the worst person to be around. He picked a fight with the husband of my cousin on the birthday party of my dad, with swearing and raising his voice, for a minor thing, in front of his small kids. He and his parents made the life of my other cousin a living hell for a year when his parents let him move in an apartment of theirs and were disturbing him daily about every little thing he did, like opening a window, showering too long etc. My bill also makes derogatory comments to my parents and me and my husband as jokes. We are all kinda looking over those instances because we know once we say something, it will make my sister's life a literally hell. She doesn't know we don't like him. She is a family loving and fantastic person, but she is really blind when it comes to him. I know she would never divorce him even when he would turn against us and would make her cut contact. My oldest aunt had a baby before her only child and gave him up for adoption. I've met him. He's lovely. I've tried to tell her, but she has ignored and worked to isolate me from the family. I've kept her secret. Her husband was in Vietnam when it happened. It wasn't his baby. It's a secret that I actually make music. I will take it to my grave from my girlfriend's family. They're all southern Midwest, country, God is good type people. They're sweet, friendly, and they love me. The fact that I keep the lights on with some deep voice grungy rap would make them 1. Question if I am a Christian, and I've avoided that conversation for well over a year, and 2. They assume all career musicians are rich beyond belief. I give my producers and mastering techs their very fair share to make sure they eat good, and as a result I live comfortable. But I'm not rolling Arabed in a Maybach living in a mansion like how they imagine every musician is, and I know they'd be looking for their handouts. There is a lot of expenses when you're unsigned. My grandfather divorced his wife at the age of 76 and then started dating his cousin, who is 12 years younger than him. The cousin then became hated by the whole family because it was obvious that she was only in for the money. He died 5 years later. She was at his funeral and left pretty early, but surprisingly she didn't get a cent. My grandmother probably had narcissistic personality disorder, which she passed on to my mother. My mother never got over her traumatic childhood and abused me until I moved out at 18. It's a running joke in the family that my grandmother hit my father regularly. She once tried to hit him. He ducked and she broke her hand on the table. To this day she has problems with her hand. If anyone talks about one of the above they are shut down immediately. Miso is the last remaining child of her parents. Both of her brothers died about 15 years ago due to different but tragic circumstances, one a nasty cancer, the other a drug OD. One brother married a very neurotic woman and had a daughter, the other sired a son with a girlfriend but never married. Her family is in touch with all the relatives. So's father passed about 6 years ago, mother is still alive. When both parents were still alive, they redid their wills and left Miso everything but with a verbal agreement to share a given portion with the grandchildren. We have 2 kids, so 4 grandchildren total. Neurotic woman gets nothing. She will go absolutely ballistic when she learns she gets nothing, because she was always a money grubber. And we actually don't care if it tears her away from the rest of the family, cause we'll be better off. In Mario Kart 8, when I'm on a win streak, I feel one of my family members is going to quit playing because of it, and it's a close race. I purposely let off the accelerator button to let them win. That my sister and her son yelled, cajoled, begged, convinced my 83-year-old mother to give them a signature-only loan, interest-free, for almost $100k, every bit of cash she could get, plus $30k in a bank loan, to support grandson's failing business. There were 5 kids, and property was supposed to have been divided 5 ways after mom passed, using that money to support her as needed until then. But the prodigal daughter decided that her needs were more important than mom's, or those of the rest of the family. That the uncle who had to drop out of college due to money but still worked his way up into executive level jobs lied about graduating from college to his employers for decades. The real reason he retired early was because background checks were getting better at catching lies. This man was held up as an example of how you don't need a degree to succeed. Turns out you really need the ability to schmooze and BS your way out of things to get ahead. My grandfather abused me for many years. I told my parents and they dealt with it, then swept it under the rug. Now it's this big secret that none of the other family members can find out because they'd be disgusted and cut him off. It's so insulting seeing him at every small family gathering and having to pretend nothing happened for the sake of others' feelings. From the sidelines I'm like, just tell everyone, but that's a lot easier when I haven't been in a situation like that. I wish you could let people know. Molesters don't deserve protection. My wife has an uncle who is in prison for life for doing crap like that to kids in the family, and the kicker was he was also a pediatrician with his own practice, FB or something, who caught him, and his mom apparently knew all this was happening and didn't say a word. Most of the family now avoid the mom because she protected him while he has ruined so many lives. Don't protect bad people. Protect the children. My girlfriend, the love of my life, caught COVID from me and it killed her. We got sick right before the vaccines rolled out. My family knows, hers doesn't. Her family is my family too though. It'll be 3 years in February and there's no point in revealing this to them. It would destroy her parents. They tell me they see their daughter when they see me. She had lymphoma for almost 2 years and I lived with them while I was taking care of her. We've always been close. It eats at me though. Every moment I've shared with them and the rest of her family grieving, it's in the back of my head that I'm the reason for our pain. I'm not afraid of being told to never come back, to never see them again. I just don't want to hurt them any more than I already have. I have a really big family and one of my cousins is a pedophile. When I was young, I was on Nickel for the first time and he took advantage of it during a New Year's Eve party when everyone else was too busy to notice and I was so passed out I wasn't sure it was real for a long time. I opened up about it to one of my other cousins, X. After some time, he told me that I should talk to cousin Y about this too. X, Y and I were all young, under 13. Had been abused, and didn't know whether to tell an adult and get him in trouble because he'd always been nice to us besides when he would give in to his impulses as he'd say. Well, we didn't have to. He ended up abusing one of our other cousins, Zed, who was a toddler. The adults knew because Zed had to be rushed to hospital after going into anaphylactic shock from a severe allergy to something on his hands. But no one ever called the cops as far as I knew. It's just a fact the entire family knows and no one speaks about, ever. Even while he sat with all the kids and joked around as if it never happened. He now has 2 daughters and very limited custody. He moved away because as much as we don't speak of it, no one wants to be around him. Cousins X, Y and I warned the one mother. The other one apparently didn't care. I've never met the girls but I think about them often, hoping they're somehow okay. Not sure for me personally. But a guy my age reached out to my mom recently and asked if she knew one of our distant cousins, which was totally random since he doesn't live around here and our connection wouldn't be super easy to figure out. But it turns out my cousin had an affair a couple decades ago and the guy wanted to reach out and meet his dad and whatnot. I kinda expected some drama but my cousin and his wife are in their 60s or 70s and just said whatever to the affair and welcomed the guy. Should have happened a few decades sooner though because their other kid grew up really awkward by being a homeschooled only child lol. I asked my mum if she had ever cheated on anyone before, following a conversation I had about my friend cheating on his girl, and she said yes. When I asked her who it was she cheated on she said she isn't going to tell me. My dad never really bothered with me much as a kid and my parents' relationship was always very toxic and hostile. My dad is fairly dark skinned for a white man and I'm definitely whiter than him. We're built completely differently as well. Now go figure lol, it's been in the back of my mind since that conversation a few years ago. Even if my dad doesn't turn out to be my biological dad I'll still treat him although he is because he has done a lot for me. I feel although my mum was the cause of the large majority of his absence when I was a child. Regardless it's something I'm never going to pursue the answer to. My grandparents planned for my cousin's greed. Important facts: my grandfather created, owned, and operated a very successful business. My cousins did not grow up with wealthy grandma and grandpa and were therefore not used to money. I am 15 plus years younger than all my cousins. There are 7 grandchildren. 1 was disowned, 1 inherited early, and the rest of us, 5, had all our assets that were gifted to us put in a partition trust. The basic outline of the trust: all grandkids started with the same amount of assets. All profits earned by the partition section are kept by the section it was earned by for. You are able to pull out for medical bills, education up to a PhD, and major life events, weddings, births, deaths, before the release age. When you pull out all of your assets your section gets dissolved. You are able to pull out all assets without penalty when you are a certain age within the paperwork. Let's say 35. The trust dissolves 21 years past my release age. I am just now getting close to my magical release age. My cousins have long pulled their assets out of the trust. My husband and I live life like it doesn't exist. My cousins keep telling me to pull money out for this or that, medical bills and whatnot. You know, regular things. It's for emergencies only. They have no idea how they screwed themselves over, relying on grandma and grandpa. Before anyone comes for me, my cousins are very well off on their own but use the trust to not have uncomfortable things happen. I was the last one to talk to my younger brother before he passed away. For a few years I just assumed, like mom, that he got some heroin mixed in with some shitty bootleg pills. Then one day, the floodgates opened in my mind and I remembered our conversation that night. He made me promise but to tell mom. I did. Then he told me he tried snorting heroin for the first time because when he got there, his dealer had already sold the pain pills out from under him. Hev was acting like he did on pain meds, so I just said, "Man, I hope you don't do that anymore." He overdosed. His heart had the same defect that dad did. When we found him the next afternoon, mom lost it. I had to stuff everything down so I could handle everything, including being the person to MC his funeral. I turned it into a celebration. I paid for everything. I took care of my mother and my daughter. When I arrived it all down, it didn't start finding a way back up until a couple of years later. I'll never tell mom. It will just cause her more pain and do nothing. Plus, I promised. Old secret, our family was never a strong unit. But I imagine that I know part of the reason. My biological father was married to my mom's sister. He also fathered children with my mom's brother's wife. It came out about them during my mom's brother's divorce. I didn't find out until after mom died. My brother told me that she swore the older kids to secrecy. Told the little ones that she adopted me. That's the part that made me angry. Because my other brother believed his whole life that I was adopted. She didn't want them asking questions, I guess. I think my aunt suspected it. She made a lot of comments about how I had the cheeks and personality of my dad's family. Apparently everyone but me knew. When I told my nephew, who's a year older than me, he said that's what Granny told me, but she told me not to tell you.